Thanks for joining us for another episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. The regular season is over and we're here with our NFL Super Wildcard Weekend Picks and Preview episode. Here, the regular season has gone by in a flash and we're down to just 14 teams. 3 or 4 weeks away from the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. There's still lots of football to go, and it should be extremely exciting. We're going to kick off this episode of Good Teams and Great Teams Cover with our guest segment, and we're joined by Steve from the Roar of the Lions UK podcast all about the Detroit Lions, clues in the name. And as the Detroit Lions are going to be hosting a home playoff game for the first time in 30 years, we couldn't think of a better fan base to speak to. So Steve, welcome to Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing?
Thanks for inviting me. 14 teams left, and one of them is the Detroit Lions. Who would have thought that 3 years ago? What an amazing buzz to be going into the playoffs with me and Lions fans everywhere, and all the guys at Roar of the Lions UK are absolutely buzzing for this weekend. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it is. It's been a incredible run under Motor City Dan Campbell. Obviously, you've got the T-shirt on there, and just kind of the progression. It's a great shirt. I love it. It's been kind of that progression, and we saw the Lions, especially kind of the back end of last year, after kind of a rough start, show what they can do. And they've carried it through the season. It's been a great season. We're going to get into that and kind of how you felt the season's gone. I think what would be great to do, and what I think is great to understand the stories of the UK guys and the teams that they follow and why. So, Steve, what was it that made you become sort of a Detroit Lions fan in the first place?
So I'm, I guess, a bit older than some of the guys on Roar of the Lions who are still in their 20s and 30s. So I still remember the days of like the NFL show on Channel 4. So going back to like the early 90s, and obviously early 90s, late 80s was like the era of the running back, like, Walter Payton, Tony Dorsett, and of course Barry Sanders. So I used to watch religiously, like when I was a sort of schoolboy, watching Barry Sanders like rip off like crazy runs, and then left home. And kind of because I didn't have Sky, because I think it went on to Sky mid 90s. So I kind of lost touch with it for like about 10 years. Typical student, didn't have the money for Sky. And then I kind of got back into it just the start of the Stafford era. In fact, I got into it just as we had the 0-16 season. And so I was like, what's happened to the team? Because obviously early 90s, even though we didn't win anything, we were having some like success with Barry Sanders, and we had Rodney Peete and a decent Wayne Fontes, decent coach. So then I've kind of lived through the 0-16 era, and then just seen them like waste 10 years of Stafford. And I'm sure from like a UK soccer point of view, there's plenty of Premiership teams that have had like a star player, and they've just seen the rest of the team not been able to like support him. And it was kind of like a crime with how the lack of support that Stafford got, and he's trying to do it all on his own. And he's got no O-line, and he's getting murdered, and his body is just breaking down. And then of course, we had that little flash with Jim Caldwell, 2016, 2017, and then Caldwell went, Stafford was injured, and Matt Patricia took over. And there's any Philadelphia Eagles fans out there who are currently experiencing the Matt Patricia rocket scientist as defensive coordinator, like not a good human being to be around your NFL team. So 3 catastrophic years, another rebuild, and now enter Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, and the MCDC era has just been amazing. From a terrible start, I think 3-13-1 in his first season. And then that 1-6 start last year, finishing up with a great run, 9-8, knocking the Packers out of the playoff, stopping the Packers getting from the playoffs. And then, of course, this season's just been fantastic. So it's just building momentum, and great to watch, and great to see like the crowd in Ford Field getting louder and louder.
Yeah, it's going to be like that Sunday night. It's not only is it the Lions are in the postseason. There's Sunday night football. Ford Field's going to be the city of Detroit's going to be buzzing all weekend. It's going to be one hell of a place to be on Sunday night, and we're going to get in the storylines right themselves for this one. Stafford coming back, Goff kind of palmed off by the Rams in that trade. The storylines right themselves. Let's have a chat around the Roar of the Lions podcast first, if that's okay, Steve. So you're part of that Roar of the Lions UK podcast. How did your involvement in that start, and also kind of where can we find it, and how often can we listen to you guys?
So the podcast had already started, and I kind of wasn't there for sort of day one. So this is probably like 4 or 5 seasons ago. And I'd actually, I've got some really good friends who live in Michigan, and I'd saved up the money to go out and see them in Michigan. And my friend Eric, shout out to the Hirokis in Michigan. Eric took me to see the Lions play the Packers at Ford Field. I think it was October 2018. So this was in the depths of the Matt Patricia era, but amazingly, the Lions sneaked a win. The Packers had an off day, we won, and I mean, Ford Field is a loud stadium. And I think because it was the Packers there, even though we weren't particularly successful that season, I think we finished 6-11. But beating the Packers, the place was absolutely jumping. So I was kind of really, my interest in the NFL was totally revived. And when I got home from the Michigan trip, I would just thought I'm going to hook up with some UK Lions fans, and had a look to see what was out there. And I was amazed to see there was this great little podcast going with 2 or 3 guys based in the north of England and Bristol. But at the time they had probably 50, 60 listeners and about 100 subscribers. And over the last 3 years, Matt, who runs it, Ryan and Tom, the rest of the guys, they put so much into it. We try and get the best guests on. So we've had Jason Bell, we've had Jason Kabinda, our fullback. We've had some good people like Dave Burkett, who's one of the top reporters who reports for Michigan Press. So we've really tried to push it, and we do a lot of stuff around the draft. So Ant and Ryan do a college football podcast separately, but around the draft we just find the listeners grows and grows, and we've always done a crazy 72-hour live stream for the draft for the last few. Let's not forget, for the last few years, the draft has been our Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think probably about 2 years ago, it just took off, and we now get, I think we've got nearly 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, a lot on Twitch. We get regularly sort of 500-600 listens to a podcast. So yeah, the guys have really put the work in, and it, like I said, Matt's from Bristol, Ant's from Chesterfield, Tom's in London, Ryan's in Bradford, other Ryan's in London. So we've got a good spread out group, and I'm up in Edinburgh, so a good distribution around the UK.
Nice. It's great to hear the stories, and I think what's really great in kind of the NFL UK community, where it's kind of I hate using the word content creation, but whether the podcasts or the YouTube videos or whatever it is, that real kind of DIY spirit to it, and almost not quite it's got a little bit that punk element to it of just kind of picking it up and just getting it done and seeing kind of what happens. I think that's really, really cool. There's some great stories, and that's another one for the Roar of the Lions podcast. I think it's great, and to grow it like you have done, it's a real testament to the work, because it's not easy. It's not just sitting around talking about football as much as that's what the product that goes out.
I think if you compare it to some of the American podcasts, the Americans are very good at what they do, but they take it really seriously. And we take it seriously, but we also have a lot of messing about. And there's a lot of kind of, I guess, more soccer type banter, a lot of double entendres, a lot of going after each other for bad takes, and so I think we really enjoy that kind of the camaraderie of it. Win, lose or tie. We kind of we enjoy ourselves doing it. And I think compared to some of the American ones, it's a bit less dry and a bit kind of a bit more edgy, as we would say.
Yeah, it's a good way to describe it. And of course, a deep playoff run will help those episodes, I think, over the next few weeks. That's for sure. And where can we find it, Steve? Where can we go listen to Roar Lions, and where can we follow?
So we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch. We've got a Twitter account where Ant and Matt do a lot of sort of live commentary on the games. But YouTube and Twitch are probably the best two places to find us.
Cool, good stuff. So if you're not already, if you've got any Detroit Lion fans and everybody else as well, go check in on the guys and see what they've got coming up and go check out the episodes for sure.
Yeah, we've got a Discord channel and a WhatsApp group as well, just for like more popping in and out. But yeah, it's like a really growing community, and actually quite a lot of our community now is from America. So we get a lot of American listeners, I think, because they want like a different angle to the kind of stuff that gets sort of pumped out by the sort of bigger outlets in the US.
Yeah, I think kind of as time's gone on, sort of think, because we've done a lot of stuff with guys, not just the guys, there's plenty of them, guys across America. I think they take the UK guys a bit more seriously than they once did. I think because of, they see kind of the selling out these games constantly, but people know what they're talking about over this side of the pond. It's not just a fleeting interest. So, yeah, I think that certainly helps as well. And clearly shown by kind of the growth in your community with guys from America joining it as well. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. And a lot of the stuff, the comments we get are like, wow, we can't believe you guys like, ahead of this news or upon these stats. So they kind of, it's good kudos for us. And like I said, I probably take it less seriously than some of the other guys, but like some of the other guys on the podcast really put the work in. Like Ash, all over his college football, his draft picks, his stats. So does Ant, so does Matt. So there's some deep thinking in the group as well as some nonsense.
Nice, good stuff. Well, like I say, listen, go give the guys a follow. Roar Lions at ROTL_UK, and also go YouTube, Twitch. Go give them a watch and a follow as well. Let's get into the I suppose the game and the season. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit. Talk about kind of how you got to follow Lions, but this season's been kind of a follow on of how the second half of last season went. I think I was not critical because that's not fair, but I thought maybe Dan Campbell might have lost the team a little bit last season when they kind of had that start, and maybe the message, because I think I'd run through a brick wall for Dan Campbell, to be fair. But that message might have just been going, but turned it around and it's gone into the season. How has it been just kind of watching this real exciting, aggressive, risk-taking team throughout 2023?
I guess surreal is probably like a good starting place. It just seems a bit surreal, and they're always talk in context of the Lions, and not won a playoff game for 30 years. But you've got to remember, like in terms of context, before 1991, we hadn't had a double-digit winning season, I think, since 1970. So it's not just like a 30-year drought. This drought goes back to like the late 60s. And so there's been this kind of real down culture, same old Lions, whatever we can do to F it up, we will find a way. And I think that mentality is kind of like has got into the bricks and mortar of the team. And I think you need to have a force of nature personality to come in like Dan Campbell to kind of like exercise all those demons. And I mean, Campbell is a force of nature. I mean, from his opening press conference, where he kind of came across kind of like sort of frenzied, kind of almost like cliche in terms of all of the kind of like big chat. But the guys delivered. We knew that season one was going to be a rebuild, and 3-13-1 and trading Stafford. So we kind of knew that was a write-off, and then I think we were shocked at the start to the second season when we went 1-6. But even in those first 7 games, there were like glimmers of hope, and there were little things that we saw on the field that we just thought, okay, like it feels like something's changing, and they were dangerous. Like we were always pulling off trick plays and going for it on 4th down. And then the way that we kind of closed out last season, and just all of a sudden, the mistakes started to disappear, the defense started to tighten up. And obviously, we've been building through the draft for the last sort of 2 or 3 years since Brad Holmes took over, and we've got like key pieces like Penny Sewell, at tackle, who's all pro, I think this season, or is certainly going to be Aiden Hutchinson, and I think that's really given the team a bit of stability. So I'm not sure Campbell lost the dressing room, but I think there was probably still some of those rebuild emotions knocking around, and he hadn't quite got rid of a couple of maybe not bad apples, but people that weren't on board. There are people that maybe he wasn't convinced after the first season and had kind of given them a second chance. And I think during that second season, like they cleaned out anyone that wasn't down with Campbell's program.
And I think you saw, in week 16 when they secured the division against the Vikings, wasn't it? Yeah, against the Vikings. So that outpouring of emotion of what this team have achieved with a couple of games to go, and just almost like a weight being lifted maybe because they've gone and done that. Never won the NFC North before with the division realignments and that, just that outpouring of emotion. I was a little bit worried for the Lions at that point that maybe like that was the Everest sort of piece. But, I know they lost to the Cowboys, but it was a very, very close game and arguably should have won. And then going and took care of business against the Vikings. They seem to be in real good shape heading into the wildcard round against the Rams. First off, how does it feel to kind of be coming up against Stafford and the Rams, everything with that trade and what Matt Stafford meant to the city of Detroit? How is that kind of feeling heading into the game?
So I think the first thing to remember is even though this season's been really positive, there has been a couple of really dodgy moments. So when we lost to the Packers on Thanksgiving, that was a bit of a slap in the face in terms of, we thought we were going to waltz into the playoffs and there was talk of the number 1 seed and all this kind of stuff. And, the NFL is not like that. Like the NFL is the classic, just when you think things are turning, there's always someone to kind of hit you from behind. So I think that relief was that not just that we'd made it, but we'd started playing good football again, because we got our asses handed to us by the Ravens, I think maybe week 7, week 8. And then there was the Packers, and the defense was starting to kind of unravel. No one could make a play on defense. Hutchinson had gone a bit quiet. And just to kind of get over the line, but also get over the line playing some good stuff, I think was massive for us. In terms of Stafford, I think the Lions fans are very much split into 2 camps. And I'm going to say I'm very much in the camp that, I love Stafford, absolutely loved him. I had his jersey, was my favourite player. But, you've got to let him go. But let's not forget that trade was all about a rebuild. It wasn't like Stafford doing a Russell Wilson hissy fit or Aaron Rodgers drama queen. The Stafford was never like that. Stafford was absolutely loyal, and I think Stafford, if they'd have asked him to, I think he'd still be playing there now. But so I'm very much I'm not going to boo Stafford, and but at the same time, if Stafford burns us, which I'm sure we're going to come on to, but if that happens, I'm going to be gutted. But I think there's a lot of the fan base saying daft things. Anyone wearing a Stafford shirt won't be allowed into Ford Field in the world. It's daft stuff. I mean, the guy is always going to be a legend, but we've got to focus on the fact that we actually got a very good QB in that trade. Jared Goff has turned out to be a real good signal caller, and there's probably a dozen teams in the NFL that are kind of envious that they don't have him.
Yeah, I mean the Rams to move Goff, it was a salary dump move for them because of where they're at, and kind of Goff's progression over the 3 years has been great. So this is somebody who's played in the big game before. He's been to the Super Bowl with the Rams before, albeit in a losing effort against the Patriots. But how has it been kind of watching Goff's progression in this offense, and he seems to be dialed in. Had a bit of a wobble in that kind of 3-game stretch. I think the Bears, where they nearly lost at home, lost to the Packers, and the Saints, where they were up big and kind of nearly give the game away as well.
I mean, Stafford and Goff are both pocket passers. That's their game. I would say Stafford has always had a little surprising set of wheels on him when he does get flushed out. Well, he certainly used to. I think as he's got older, that's kind of diminished. But Goff is a real pocket passer, and he's not good on the move. But we've seen him grow in confidence. That first season, when we went 3-13-1, he didn't have the weapons, he didn't have a solid O-line, and he was just being hunted down a lot of the time. And like most QBs in the NFL, you look at someone like Kirk Cousins and how he is when he's got a nice clean pocket where he's like outstanding, but the minute you put a bit of pressure on him, the ball's spraying everywhere. And Goff's very similar. But what we have seen is Goff makes some really, really clutch throws. He's got a great arm on him. He's got like an absolute cannon, and he can put it into real small windows. And also, he's not afraid of taking a hit. He's a brave guy. He's not like fragile at all. So I think as the weapons are built around him, and if you look at our offense now, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1,500 yards this year, and just an absolute beast in terms of like making contested catches. You've got probably the best running back room we've had in Detroit for probably since Barry Sanders, with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, who's absolute lightning in the bottle. We've got Jameson Williams, we've got Sam Laporta, who's like setting records. So all of a sudden, Goff's got weapons, and more importantly, he's probably got one of the top 3 O-lines in the NFL, anchored by like Ragnar at center, Decker at left tackle, Penei Sewell at right tackle. There's not much better in the NFL. So I think that's massively helped Goff's confidence.
Yeah, and I've been very impressed at times with Jared Goff, and in particular, probably not more so. Probably, I know it's not biased because it was against the Cowboys, but the drive at the end of the game to put and went for 2 and all of that happened, but the drive to score the touchdown to get to that point, I thought was particularly impressive. Just hanging in there with Dallas bringing the pass rush and to try and shut him down. I thought that drive in particular was very, very impressive, and it's just a snippet of what he's been doing for the Lions. Heading into Sunday, what are the keys for you in this game in terms of, from a Detroit perspective? How do they win? How do they beat the Rams here? Because the Rams have got guys that have been there and done it before. I've probably been a bit of a surprise, not a surprise package because they've got great players, but after such a bad year last year, turned it around so quickly. What are the keys and how are Detroit going to win this game?
So I'd say it's probably like 3 real big things, and we've kind of just touched on one, so I'll finish that off first. So in terms of keeping Goff's pocket clean and keeping the pressure away from him, obviously the Rams, that probably their 2 biggest weapons are Aaron Donald, who is outstanding on every measure, and then you've got Kobe Turner, who I think is a 3rd round pick, who's really made a bit of a name for himself, and a lot of people are, but he's only making pressures because they're double teaming Donald. Well, look at the tape, and that's not true. He's like an absolute stud. So if our O-line can hold up against Donald, Kobe Turner, and they've got like 3 pretty decent blitz and linebackers who've notched a lot of sacks this year, I think that's the key matchup, our O-line against their defensive front. And then obviously, if you look at the weapons going the other way, you've got Stafford, who not having his best season, but has still got a fantastic arm, and underestimate him at your peril, because he can still throw a 50-yard bomb, and he can throw into tight windows, and he's absolutely fearless. And then, in terms of the weapons he's obviously got Cooper Kupp, who I think's been a bit banged up and isn't on his usual pace, but still very, very dangerous. Great route runner. And then you've got Puka Nacua, who has just been a sensation. And I think their running back, is it Kyron Williams? Yeah. Has had a 1,200-yard season, and probably the Rams have really struggled with a running back for some years, and he's been a bit of a sensation. So I think it's if our secondary can like hold up, but I don't want to kind of like start being a merchant of doom. CD Lamb just had a 200-yard day against us 2 weeks ago. Justin Jefferson, I think, ripped us for 190 yards. And that is the one problem with the Lions, is that we don't have a CB1. We brought Cam Sutton in from the Steelers on free agency. Cam Sutton's a really good CB2, but he's not a CB1. And, he's been burned quite a bit. And one of the issues we've had is that Aaron Glenn, for whatever reason, scheming the safeties to cover the cornerbacks and to give them a bit of extra support just hasn't happened for a lot of the season. Part for that was CJ Gardner-Johnson getting injured and being out, because I think he was the natural leader. But we've got some good safeties. We've got Kirby Joseph, Tracy Walker, Melifonwu, who is a converted cornerback into a safety, has got a couple of picks. But the coverage has been a bit shaky, and that's our biggest worry, I think, is Nakua and Cooper Kupp. And I think Tyler Higby's a decent tight end as well, and what Stafford can do with those weapons. So that brings us on to my final point. We absolutely have to, shut Stafford down. And a lot of that is on Aiden Hutchinson, who's obviously had like an amazing season, and he's getting better and better. And then Aleem McNeil, our defensive tackle, who's really, I think, the 3rd-round pick 2 years ago. And again, it's just getting better and better. So if they can put pressure on Stafford and not give him time to throw, I think that's the key to victory for us. Because if he does have time to throw, we're going to get torched in our secondary.
Yeah. If it feels like that. You mentioned the injury to CJ Gardner-Johnson. He came in from Philly in free agency, and he played that middle of the field role so well for Philadelphia last year. It was a key part to why their defense was so good. Funnily enough, he leaves and their defense has just gone to pot. And it's a shame he's not been kind of fit all season, because I think he would have made a huge difference to that secondary for the Lions. I think you're right. I think you have to get to Stafford, and have to pressure him, because the secondary might not hold up. Hutchinson is sort of he's had a great year, but certainly the last 2 games, he's had 5 sacks in his last 2 games. So against the Vikings and the Cowboys, 5 sacks. So I think, that's going to be key. If Aiden Hutchinson can have one of those game wrecker kind of nights.
His spin move is just a thing of beauty. Watch his 3rd sack against the Vikings. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, he's been incredible, and you're expecting someone who's going 2nd overall in the draft to have a big impact. But I think he's been fantastic so far, and the scary thing is he's only going to get better as well. Which is scary. I think probably key, and I think one of the things as well, and I think unfairly there was a bit of criticism last week on the start, playing so many of the starters. I think that's easy to say when a couple of them get injured, but the way it was, Detroit could have had a shot at getting to the number 2 seed, so probably the right thing to do. How did the Lions deal with the injuries? Because the Laporta one looked rough, but I don't know if he's going to play or not. He's not been ruled out, but he's certainly not practiced. And I think Khalif Raymond as well, who's had little sparks in that offense, has popped up on the report with injury, and Branch was as well. Brian Branch is going to be key in that secondary. How do the Lions kind of manage those, and if those guys don't suit up to play, how big of a problem is it?
I mean, I think our injury, it's not all been disaster for injury perspective, but I think because we had such a bad start to the season, because obviously losing Gardner-Johnson, and we'd taken Emmanuel Mosley, the corner from the 49ers, with the intention of him being the starter. And I think he tore his Achilles in the first game of the season. So bearing in mind our secondary was such an area of focus, it was kind of like a disaster. But I think, we've actually not been too bad for injuries. And Aleem McNeil's been off for a few weeks. He's come back just at the right time. Gardner-Johnson's back ahead of schedule. And our O-line, which is historically, I think last season, we never played the same 5 starters throughout the whole season on the O-line. And to keep our O-line together is absolutely key. So I think losing Laporta, he's not 100% ruled out. Apparently, he has got a bone bruise but apparently he was in the walkthroughs this week, and he's kind of going to be 50-50 whether he plays. Campbell's he's always a bit guarded, but I think there's a chance that he could play. But we've got another decent pass catching and blocking tight end called Brock Wright, who goes under the radar a bit, who hopefully will be back and fit. So he's not a bad option.
Yeah, Porter's had an incredible year, and again another one. It's been, the rookies have been great offensively. Whether it's been CJ Stroud, Puka Nacua, Sam Laporta's right up there with both of them in terms of the season.
Gibbs, yeah, Gibbs has been an impact player, yeah.
Yeah, and the balance, that 1-2 punch they've got with Gibbs and Montgomery has been fantastic. Call it for us, Steve. Then, so we are a gambling show, so the Lions are 3-point favourites at home to the Rams. I think the over/under is 51.5. But call it for us. So first of all, outright, are the Lions going to win the game outright?
Yeah, I think Ford Field's going to be absolutely off the scale. It's going to be wild in terms. It's one of the loudest grounds anyway, and you've seen in the second half of the season, a lot of teams have had real trouble getting the snaps off on time, and we've got a lot of penalties through crowd noise. So I think it's going to be wild, and I think that's going to be a real advantage. And I think our offense, I think it's going to be a shootout. So I'm not sure what the over and under for total points of the game is.
I think it's 51.5 right now.
I would hammer that over. Ooh. Because I think I don't think the Rams secondary is their strength, and I think Goff is going to absolutely have to throw. But also we've got a great running attack with David Montgomery, who's been a revelation this season, and Jahmyr Gibbs. So I think we'll try and get the run game going early, bring in a lot of run pass option, and I think Goff will fling it out. And obviously we've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, I think will play a big part. So I can see the winning team needing to put like 35 on the board to win this.
I'd love that. That'd be a great Sunday night football game.
But yeah, I think our offense is good enough that we can beat the Rams in a shootout.
Kind of outlast them, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not. I don't feel like Cooper Kupp is at his best. And I think we've got better options on offense. And I think, like I said, our O-line is better than the Rams. So I think if you go position by position, we've got a slight edge, and add the crowd noise, and there'll be a lot of emotion. And Campbell will be absolutely like brutal in terms of his riverboat run style, going for it on fourth down and
trick plays. Is he going for everything? Yeah.
Did you see the fake punt the other day?
Yeah, I thought he might kind of kept that one in his back pocket a little bit because kind of in that game.
I think he's got a couple more.
Yeah.
I would say Lions by 4.
Lions by 4. So yeah, covering the spread lines for it. I think it's a real tough one to be. I think outside just putting my own team to one side, following the Cowboys, but just looking objectively at the 6 games, this is the one I'm most excited for. I think it's going to be an absolutely tremendous game. The storylines are there. The two teams are both exciting. I think it's just built to be a great game. And we haven't really had the NBC Sunday night games. Have been a bit of most of them have been duds. So I think they need one to sort of save Sunday night football for this season. And this could be the one to just explode and just be, I think it's just set up to be such a good game.
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely going to be a good one. And like I said, there's all the elements are there, but there's just some really explosive players going to be on the field. So I think it's going to be an absolute must watch.
Yeah. Absolutely, and we'll certainly be staying up on Sunday night and tuning in for this one. Steve, just want to say a huge thank you for coming on Good Teams and Great Teams cover. It's a privilege. Hopefully we can get you and the guys from Royal Lions on in the future as well for some Lions take. It'd be great to have you and some of the guys back as well. Just one last time, where can we go catch Raw of the Lions, and where can we follow?
I mean, we could be catching up against the Cowboys in the divisional round.
Yeah. Oh, we'll have you back on for that. Sure, if that pans out.
It will be a very spicy rematch of a controversial recent result. So yeah, come and find us: Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. Join our Discord. We cover all bases, and we normally do a Monday post game pod, reviewing the game, and we normally do a Thursday preview. And then Ant and Ryan do a college football show during college football season, normally on a Wednesday. But we also keep it all going, building up to the draft. And then when we do the draft, so we don't just focus on the Lions when we have the draft. The last 3 seasons, we've had representatives from all 32 teams on and over the course of draft weekend. So, and I'm sure it'd be good to get you guys on to talk about some betting props in terms of how the draft's going to pan out. So, yeah, absolutely, come and find us. I think end of March in Detroit, of course. The draft.
Nice, yeah, draft in Detroit, and it was in Kansas City last year, and they won the Super Bowl. So maybe it's written in the stars. It's been a good week for Michigan already, with Michigan winning a national championship. So hopefully that continues for you and the Lions on Sunday, Steve. It's been a pleasure to have you, and like I say, hopefully we'll catch up soon. We're going to throw across to myself, Joe, and Byron to finish off the rest of our Super Wildcard Weekend picks and preview show. So, Steve, we'll catch you soon, and stick around for the rest of the episode.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Steve from the Royal Lions UK podcast. Great, fantastic guest. Best of luck to his Detroit Lions on Sunday. And go give the guys at Royal Lions UK a follow. Their podcast is available on YouTube and Twitch. And go give their X and Twitter a follow as well at ROTL_UK. I'm joined for the rest of our Super Wildcard Weekend picks and preview episode by the usual suspects, Joe and Byron. Welcome to the playoffs, gentlemen. How are we both doing?
Great, yeah. Best time of the NFL season. Playoffs, nothing better.
Yeah, definitely think this week and next week, with the number of games, are the best weekends. So it's all exciting. Now there's 6 games in the wildcard weekend. It makes it a bit more exciting, and I think it's probably the best matchups for quite a few number of years. So it's just exciting more.
Yeah, I think it's worked out, hasn't it, really well in terms of kind of if there is an NFL script writer, then this weekend's fallen absolutely perfectly. In 4 of the games, there's huge kind of stories and narratives. So it's worked out perfectly. We're going to get into all 6 games, and we're going to break them down. It's been weird this week, only preparing for 6 games instead of 16. That's felt a bit odd. Doing this in our first season. But before that, obviously, we did our review episode where we covered a couple of the coaching firings and changes. In the days since we did our Week 18 review, there's been 3 more. A couple, I think we'd say we talked about that we've expected. One maybe a little bit of a shock, but we have to start with one that broke this morning and broke today, very early in the US time today. I think it was 7 o'clock, wasn't it? they got it out. And that's Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots have mutually agreed to part ways. 24 years, 6 Super Bowls, an incredible run, incredible dynasty as it's been. Byron, you called it, and we've talked about it the last few weeks. In fact, we've been hammering that clip out across all our socials the last few days. But back in our AFC East preview, which was one of the first divisions we did, so I think we're talking about May and June when that episode came out.
The end of May, yeah.
Yeah, you called that the Patriots were going to go 4-13, and that Bill was definitely on the hot seat, and this probably was going to be his last season. Can I have the lottery numbers, please?
Yeah, sure, you can have them. I'm not. They might not come in for another 8 months, though. It's my favorite call of the season, unsurprisingly, because it was a bold call, and like you say, it was early into the season previews, and it felt like, am I being a bit too hot takey here? And yeah, when I was clipping it for Sunday, I was like, oh, I didn't realize I got the record bang on as well. So I was very much cheering the Jets on Sunday after I'd realized, because like, sounds even better if you get the record right. Still, it doesn't matter how it comes, really, though. It's a shock to see it in reality. And I liked he opened with a little quip about, there haven't been this many cameras since we had Tebow, which I thought was, it shows it is in some kind of good spirit about it, even if it's mutual to a degree. I think he'd have been very happy to stay. So I think it's mutual in a sense, but I do think it's for the best for the New England Patriots. I'm very interested to see what his next move is. I don't think he's ready to leave coaching. Atlanta's been heavily rumored. I think Washington's been rumored. LA Chargers have been rumored. I tell you, it's a good time to need a head coach, though, because you've got Jim Harbaugh available, Mike Vrabel available, Bill Belichick is available, which sounds... It doesn't sound true. Ben Johnson, Lions, beloved OC is probably available for a head coaching job. Yeah, good time to need a head coach. Plenty of leaders of men certainly available. I don't think Pete Carroll is rushing back in, but if the right opportunity arose, I don't know if he'd say no.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to feel weird because, in the time I've been watching, the sport Belichick has been with the New England Patriots, it is going to feel weird. The only thing I can kind of compare it to for a, and not to, because it's not what we tend to do as a podcast, but it's going to feel a little bit like when Fergie left Man United, a little bit, just like the two just don't seem to exist without each other, sort of thing. And I think it's going to feel that way. I wouldn't be surprised if he took a year, because I know there's 7 jobs there. I think he's going to want the right move, and maybe he takes a year. I don't know. And, there's 7 jobs there. There might be one that really tickles his fancy, because I feel like you kind of almost have the pick, really, of those that are interested. Joe, I mean, kind of just I think we do have to talk about him and kind of what he's done and what he's achieved before we move on. But doesn't mean anything to me. I think we're all NFC guys, so we haven't felt the brunt of the Patriots quite as much as obviously those fans of the AFC. But kind of from your perspective, Joe, what's Belichick meant to you in the terms of the NFL?
Yeah, it's even though we're NFC, they've won plenty of Super Bowls, and they felt like him and Brady were a tandem together. They were, the team what everyone hated. And I think he enjoyed that moniker as well. He played up to that he was always the bad guy of the NFL in terms of, ruining plenty of seasons for, everyone in the AFC. And there's plenty of Super Bowls where they had, you didn't think, oh, they're not going to win this. And then suddenly they just sneak out a win and you're like, oh, I just hate this team. And you probably could call it that he's probably one of the best coaches in the league. Sorry, one of the best coaches ever. Is certainly in the top 2. So I think it was right time to move on. I think it's going to be even weirder if he does go to another team, because I know you've compared to Ferguson, but it's not like Fergie went to manage Tottenham and it was just like, oh, that's weird. So it's going to be even weirder. And he felt like early when he had the press conference a few days ago, it felt like he was basically saying, you've got to fire me. I'm not just going to leave. And it felt like they made that decision. And I was surprised they didn't try to trade him, but I'm guessing just the complexity of that with still the active head coach. I know that the Saints managed to get some picks from the Broncos, but he had, it was already a year out from him leaving, so I guess that'd be a lot easier. So, it's new day in New England, and see where it goes, because could they be going in a downhill trajectory like what when you have and be in a somber place for the next few years.
All right.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
But especially because he's like the favourites I've seen is Mayo is the favourite. And it just feels weird that you get rid of, someone who's been there, the Patriot way, create all that, and then just keep someone who's already in there, unless we don't know what happens behind the scenes and it's, a new fresh breath of fresh air, and he just has new ideas. I'm not quite sure if they just stick with that way of working, if it's actually going to progress them.
Yeah, I'm glad that he's going to be sticking around. I'm glad that he's still got it and he's not just going to leave, because I think I think he's still got more to give, and I think he still thinks he can. And, I still think deep within he thinks he can go win a championship somewhere. I've no doubt about that. And it'd be interesting to see if he does. And that would only just add to his already very impressive resume and legacy.
Well, Brady did it.
Yeah, Brady did it, absolutely. Yeah, Brady went to Tampa and did it. He did it in year 1 as well, year 1 after he left. It's going to be weird. I think Robert Kraft mentioned it in the very weird and hasty press conference that was. It didn't last very long, did it, this morning? It was very odd. But Robert Kraft mentioned it, and he sort of said that it'll be odd to see him in kind of the sleeveless hoodie of another team, which will be a bit bizarre. It's going to take some getting used to, whether he waits or whether he takes one of these jobs now. But yeah, and it is whether you love the Patriots, hate the Patriots, whatever. You can't deny it's been an absolutely unbelievable run, and deserves all his flowers. And like I say, let's see if he can go recreate the magic somewhere else.
Yeah, if the Patriots' opponents next year, 3 of them have a vacancy. The Titans, they play on the road, and then they host the Seahawks, who now have a vacancy, surprisingly, and the Chargers. I'm not sure if any of those would be on his number 1 priority, but would kind of love to see him back in Foxborough.
Yeah. Let's talk about then, well, you mentioned, Joe, there that Jared Mayo is the favourite. I think the one that makes most sense has just become available, and that's because Mike Vrabel was fired by the Tennessee Titans. This is where I sort of call it, where I felt, I didn't necessarily think they'd fire him, but where I felt it was just similar. It's the right time just to part ways. I thought Vrabel had done everything he could do in Tennessee. The back-to-back losing years, maybe that just needs a reboot and a start again. And that was kind of some of the reasoning that the Titans owner had given for firing Vrabel. Vrabel just seems like the absolute perfect fit for New England. He's got the perfect mix of knowing the team, obviously being there. He was, at this season on the Titans bye week, entered into the Patriots Hall of Fame. So he knows the team inside and out. But he's been away from Belichick and has his own style and has his own way of doing things. It seems like the perfect mix given kind of where New England are.
My only slight pushback is Vrabel's obviously a very good head coach, but it doesn't feel like he's wanted to rebuild in Tennessee. It's been very much keep pushing. And eventually that's bottomed out into, a really low season. Well, New England's not in great shakes to compete next year. I'm not saying Vrabel can't do it and build from the ground up. But, since A.J. Brown left Tennessee and Derrick Henry's been getting older and Ryan Tannehill's been getting older and fell off a little, so is everything there. There's been no ability really to develop young players, I don't think. I think he's good at getting the best out of what he has, but I don't know if he's got, the coaching ability to elevate younger players who are coming in as rookies to, new levels. And that'd be what I'd be concerned with as a Patriots fan.
Yeah, especially the offense as well, because that feels like what the Patriots' issue has been, is the offense, and it's similar to the Titans since, like you mentioned, players have got older and they've removed some players, is not being able to rejuvenate that offense. And I think he'll have to get the coordinator right to make sure, they have the set play. So they'll probably get a rookie quarterback as well. Is he going to be the man to be able to work with a rookie quarterback? Obviously, that's something to find out. And I'm curious how they're going to do the GM role as well, because obviously Bill ran everything. So, and it sounds like, Vrabel butted heads a few times, especially with some of the things that happened with AJ Brown you mentioned with the GM. So are they going to try and mesh that together and get someone who works for them, or is it going to be the same issue where, or does Vrabel want, the Belichick way where he makes all the decisions? So I'm curious how Kraft will work that out.
I think it's an interesting one that and I don't know if you saw, so the Tennessee Titans owner did a little sit-down interview with it was bizarre. It was
in-house media, right?
Yeah. So it was the play-by-play guy for there. It was odd. But I've completely lost my train of thought.
I'm not sure where your thought was, but it doesn't inspire confidence in me how Tennessee have handled it, because it looks like 4 weeks ago, Mike Vrabel was fine, and then they lost to the Texans and Case Keenum, and it felt again like, I know you kind of had a inkling that he might be on the hot seat, might be, rumored to be leaving, the last couple of weeks of the season, but it didn't feel like there was too much external pressure. And it didn't feel like there was too much internal pressure either. And then kind of on a whim of a conversation, I forget the owner's name, Amy Strouk or Amy something.
Amy Adams Struck.
We know who she is anyway. The Titans owner had a conversation with Vrabel, didn't like how it went essentially, and now he's fired. And if I'm an NFL franchise, these are billion-dollar organizations, I don't really like the idea of your coach and GM just reporting to the owner. There's no oversight, essentially. And people are just getting fired on a whim, it feels like.
And that was one of the questions the in-house media were asking her around, is there going to be some clarity around who the head coach and who the GM report into and who owns it? And the point I was getting to, sorry, it's come back. Long day. Apologies. Is that apparently that the GM wasn't consulted on Vrabel Vrabel go, and she made the decision, and that was that. And there's some bits around, I think it was Rappaport that mentioned it, that she did not take kindly. Also mentioned earlier that Vrabel was inducted to the Patriots Hall of Fame this season. It was on the Tennessee Titans bye week, and he went into Foxborough. It was halftime of one of the games. I can't remember which game it was. But Vrabel was very much talking about the Patriots as he's the Tennessee Titans head coach.
Yeah.
And she was not impressed with that. So there's a little bit that might have contributed to his downfall as well.
It's funny to think that's what not cost, but I think ultimately pushed along Josh McDaniels' demise as well. The obsession with the fucking Patriots way and how much it ties into their identities as head coaches. Very odd.
Yeah. It just feels like a really good fit for me. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I might, if you're saying Mayo's the favourite, Joe, I might stick a little bit of cash on Vrabel. He's not going to be particularly long, lads, is he? But yeah, I think I might do that while we still can make some money on it. So Titans vacancy, and it's interesting where they go with, they've just drafted Will Levis last year. He seems to be who they're going to move forward with. They've got some good young talent, Ty Spears to potentially take over from Derrick Henry. They hit on Skoronowski in the draft, so I don't know. We'll see, and it feels like that's going to take a while to build. So if maybe Adam Strunk's going to have some patience, maybe they can get something going there. And lastly, a bit of a shock, and Joe, you called this one out as a possibility. Pete Carroll. So after a story came out saying he was coming back, actually Pete Carroll's now out. He's going to stay as an advisor in Seattle, but he's out as the head coach. Kind of what's your thoughts and reactions to Pete Carroll, even after again a pretty successful 14 years?
Yeah, I was shocked at this one because I think I mentioned it a few weeks back that there were some rumors, but I think even on Monday when we did the review, I was fairly certain that he was going to stay. Just how the season ended, they just missed out and they still had a young talent. They felt that the team there was no rumors that the players are are against the head coach. There's some bad blood. People are not getting on here and there. So I was actually shocked that Carroll got let go. Carroll's one of them sneaky old people where you don't realize how old he is. Because he's older than Belichick, isn't he?
I believe so. Yeah, 72.
Yeah, which is nuts. It should Carroll looks so much younger than Belichick. He looks like he's had a good life. Carroll. So,
Carroll looks younger than me.
I know. It's crazy. He's got probably more energy than us as well.
It's just all the gum.
Exactly. What's in the gum. But yeah, no, I was shocked. I was surprised. And I've seen some comments he's made where it does sound like if there's an opportunity somewhere, he might take it. I don't think he'll be in the NFL. I'd not be surprised if he goes back to college, possibly go back to USC, go there. That could be an option at some point. But I feel like, and similar with the Titans as well, it could be where they think the grass is greener on the other side, but it's actually not. So, depending who they get, they might think, if we get someone new in, we're going to have a better season. And then, you could have 2 or 3 bad seasons and suddenly you're like, why do we let go of Carroll when really it wasn't like they had terrible seasons and terrible draft picks and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, I know. I'd heard something to say that they'd gone back and asked him to stay for another year, but he said, "Nah, I'm all right. I'll pass." Super Bowl gag in there for you? No.
I'll let you run with it.
There we go.
Do you know that? I don't know if you've all seen this fact as well, that he's one of only 3 coaches to win the national championship and the Super Bowl. I seen this a few weeks ago and never thought of a good time when it would come up, but yeah, it came up a bit in the last couple of days. So yeah, it's Jimmy Johnson with the Cowboys and Miami, Pete Carroll, USC and Seattle, and then Barry Switzer. You do not belong in this list, Barry. It always strikes me as odd. I've seen it a couple of times when I've been looking up Pete Carroll's history and stuff, and it always makes me laugh when I see that they're the 2 coaches who've done it alongside him because they're very one stands out.
Yeah. Let's just touch on that. So Michigan won the national championship on Monday, beating Washington. Head coach Jim Harbaugh, after a couple of years of getting close with Michigan, finally won the big one. There's probably an asterisk against it, depending what your views are on Caleb Sturgis. No, Stallions. Who's Caleb Sturgis?
The name rings a bell, but I don't know who it is.
Yeah, Stallions is the guy. Sorry. And then the potential.
Caleb Sturgis is a former kicker.
Oh. Yeah. Anyway, well, Stallions. And it's not Caleb, it's Connor Stallions. I got both names wrong.
Is this the spy?
Yeah, the spy. So whatever your views are on that. It sounds like Harbaugh's going to stay in the way he was talking. Which one of the jobs do you think Harbaugh would fit? Obviously, Joey was the head coach of your 49ers, took him to a Super Bowl, their last Super Bowl appearance where he lost to his brother. No?
Yeah.
No, they were in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs.
Oh, the last one was against the Chiefs, yeah.
Oh, I forgot.
With
Sorry,
Shanahan.
Mate, I was Shanahan. Yeah, my apologies. In fact, again, long day. Yeah, but he was the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, which is the point I was making. Where do we see him? Like, if he is going to go in the NFL, which one of them jobs do you see him landing?
So I think Byron's just put in the chat what the favourites are. And I think it would be the Chargers out of all of them, just because they've got the quarterback, which is normally the big issue when you are picking jobs. You want that quarterback. They are probably, and I think there he'll probably have the most amount of control.
Yeah.
I think he likes control. I think that's why he went away in 49ers, because he butted heads with the GM and the owner. So I think going to the Chargers, again, it doesn't feel like, I think they've got rid of their GM as well. So I'm guessing they can bring their own in. Yeah, the Chargers, you don't really know who the Chargers owners are. I'd be surprised if anyone can name them off the top of their head. So I feel like he would have to, oh, there you go.
Dean Spanos.
They would have, he would have total control there. And he seems like a kind of head coach, so probably similar to Vrabel, where he can get more out of the players. And that's one of his strengths. And especially on defenses. Yeah, and especially on defense as well, which is where the Chargers need to be. And like I said, because you have the top-end quarterback, that's one problem solved. So I think if you have to choose anyway, you probably choose the Chargers for Harbaugh.
Yeah, I mean, that Michigan defense as well, particularly this year, was incredible. I think they gave up less than 10 points a game in the end. Insane.
You don't worry about him rocking up in Seattle? Rebirth that NFC West brilliant rivalry. That'd be prime time.
Yeah.
Could
he work with Carroll after all there? Because they were like they had some beef in college as well, didn't they? So
that was such a good rivalry. I love that. My pick would be the Raiders. I think Antonio Pierce is going to get the job, but I just think he has such Raiders energy of like not giving a fuck. He'll get control.
Antonio Pierce is going to be interviewing with the Titans this week at some point, so I think he's just part of the process. But we'll keep tabs on all the interviews and hirings or potential hirings interviews as we go, because obviously we're still going to be around for a few weeks yet. So we'll keep that in the show. What we are going to do is park the coaches stuff, as interesting as it is, and let's talk about some bloody playoff games. And we're going to do them in order. You heard me chat with Steve from the Raw Alliance podcast about Lions Rams, so we'll just light touch on that one. But let's talk about the games. We're also going to introduce our competition for the playoffs, our draft competition. It needs a name, by the way. I didn't come up with a name, so I don't know. Playoff Picks Bonanza or something, maybe. I don't know.
Almost had alliteration there.
Well, whatever. You can come up with it. Pop it in the chat. But we'll give it a name. And yeah, so we're going to draft just 2 picks, and we'll see how we get on. Just have a little bit of competition as we go. Let's start Saturday early game, afternoon, and this is where this game belongs, and this is where any Houston Texans games belong in the postseason. Browns Texans in Houston. Texans are 2-point underdogs. Over/unders 44.5. These two teams met a matter of weeks ago. It was week 16. The Browns won in Houston in week 16, 36-22. The Texans were without C.J. Stroud and others. I think it's a combination of Case Keenum and Davis Mills that played that game. What's kind of the feel on this one? Which way do we think it's going to go?
I fancy the Texans in it. They are 2-point underdogs going into the game, but it's weird as well. The Texans go from only playing on Sunday at 1:00 to 2 Saturday games in a row. But CJ Stroud showed last week that he can play on both days on the weekend, so not a concern. It's really nothing against the Browns, really. But Texans at home with a 2-point advantage. I think I would take them straight up as well, take the money line. I just think they're playing such good football right now. There is a concern of how well Jim Schwartz shuts down Shanahan-type offenses. Done it again this season against Kyle Shanahan, and obviously Bobby Slowick is a Kyle Shanahan disciple. But I just kind of think the Texans just have too much offensively. And I know they've not got everything they would like to have. Obviously, Tank Dell is long-term out, but Nico Collins is playing so well. Joe Flacco has mistakes in him as well. You know, his story is incredible, but there's interceptions there. He's throwing the ball up to be grabbed. Luckily for him, Amari Cooper's grabbing it most time. David Njoku's been great with Flacco. But I think there is mistakes there that can be schemed up, and you know, it might only be a case of one turnover might win this game. It is, playoffs are tight games. So that's why I'm leaning Texans, but I'm not anticipating a blowout, certainly.
Yeah, I think I've got the Texans just because I was reading too much into that game, and then obviously realised going back and having a look at it of what the Texans were missing. I think my concern is that this Cleveland Browns defense that we have, talked, lauded. It's given up 30 points a game on the road this season.
Yeah,
and they are terrible on the road. 29.6 points per game they give up on the road versus 13.8 points per game in Cleveland. It's a huge factor. I won't be surprised if this was a bit of a shootout. All 8 Browns games have hit the 8 Browns roads games. I'll get there. All the Browns roads games so far this season have hit the over. However, this is the first one with a line above 40. So not a single one before above 40. So they've done the 8 road games this year, and they also did the last game of 2022. Was an over on the road, so that's 9 in a row. And by average, they hit above the line by an average of 13.5 points. These overs. I think this might end up being a bit of a shootout. And I know playoff games, it might be tight, but this Browns defense on the road can't keep it tight.
Yeah, I agree. I've got the Texans as well. I feel like we all thought, we'll choose the Texans as the fun underdog, and then we all went for it. And I think it's going to come down to who makes the most mistakes in terms of turnovers. I think it's going to be that kind of game that, like Byron said, Joe Flacco could turn it over 1, 2, 3 times, but he also could put 40 on Houston. Is that kind of game, and same for CJ Stroud, where he has been perfect most of the season, but it's the playoffs. How is he going to react to that? That's going to be big. I think the injury report list as well is big for Texans, really, because it's like all their defensive ends are not practicing as of Wednesday. So Will Anderson, Jerry Hughes, and Grenard are all not practicing. So obviously that's a bit of a worry. And obviously the Browns having a week rest because they basically rested all their starters last week. That's obviously big for them as well, with a few injuries, like Garrett wasn't practicing, or he's limited practice the other day. So I've gone with the Texans, but that extra rest could help the Browns sneak it. But I'm just hoping for, like you said, plenty of points, and I think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, the Browns report, I know they rested people last week. It's a mess. They've got a couple, 3 that are out already. So Hopkins, we already know. Cedric Tillman's out with a concussion, so he's been ruled out. Delpit, the safety, looked like he might have made it. Limited practice, he's now out. You've got a question.
Today, Denzel Ward went with a knee injury.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've got that up to date. Yeah. He's a huge loss if he can't go, because, again, Nico Collins was feasting last week against the Colts. And, again, not getting too ahead here, but he'd be definitely my consideration for Fantasy Gameday, because especially with no Tank Dell, he's just going to eat up targets. He's going to be Stroud's number 1 guy. He always is. And he's looking like a top 10, 12 NFL wide receiver right now. It's kind of crazy where this has came from, because in his first 2 years in the league, but his first 2 years in the league, he had Davis Mills and question mark thrown to him. I can't even think who it was before Davis Mills. Because it wasn't Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. And it would be nice if they get back Noah Brown, who's still not practicing, but Robert Woods is limited, just to have that extra option. Because you just, even though the Browns have given up plenty of points, they could scheme something up where, where they take your best player, and then, you're leaning on the run game, and it's not the best run game. Like I've seen, like with Singletary, he had so many runs last week against the Colts, and I think he only got like 65 yards altogether. So you can't really lean on that and if they're taking away your big star wide receiver, then you need other players to step up. And we've seen that from especially like Noah Brown and Schultz and a few others who have had 100-yard games. They might need that again. So yeah, it's certainly could do with some more players back. But yeah, the Browns is a bit crazy with how many people there may have out.
Yeah, I think the Texans ones are all trending to play because they've all, if they haven't practiced earlier in the week, they've at least got through limited practice today. In Will Anderson, Noah Brown, Malik Collins, Grenard, Jerry Hughes is out, but then Rankins, Woods, Beck as well, who's actually key part of the offense as well. Grateful.
And kick returns.
And kick returns as well, yeah. Interesting. But I just feel like the Browns are going to be just too short.
Can you do it come down to a field goal at the end when you not got your main kicker there costing you?
Well, this was the Texans had to deal with that earlier in the season, didn't they? And they had their running back kicking and the Browns, and they've struggled, haven't they? Who is it that came in and replaced Dustin Hopkins? But he struggled.
Yeah, I forget his name.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just think the Texans are going to have too much. Obviously, it was +4 earlier in the week. It's come down to +2 now.
Yeah.
Any bets, and not to spoil our competition later on, but I love the over in this one just because of the Riley Patterson. Thank you, the Browns kicker. I love the over in this one just because of the how porous the Browns defense has been away from home.
Yeah, I think I'll be betting the Texans +2. Yeah, I do like the over as well. I don't know if I'll be betting it, and then I'll probably be taking the Nico Collins lines up to and over 100.
Yeah, I'll probably go Houston with the 2 points and maybe look at Schultz's yards as well, because I just think he's going to be massive, along with Njoku as well, because the last few weeks he's been Joe Flacco's main man, and it seems like he's on fire lately with the yards after the catch. So probably them two, and I'll probably stay away from the over just because I know the Browns have conceded a lot of points away from home, but it's the playoffs and the lines always look massive in the playoffs, and suddenly it's a super tight game. So and it's squeaky bum time, and yeah, it's not a high scoring. So I'll probably, if I had to choose, I'd probably go under, but I'll probably stay away from that.
Yeah, I mean, just to shout out there, so you've got you and Njoku receiving yards lines is 56.5. Nico Collins 74.5, and then Dalton Schultz 42.5. We mentioned Nico Collins for Fantasy Gameday. I think he's 6,000. Which we've got him in our lineup currently. No spoilers. 6,200. Any other considerations?
What's Amari?
Is he a pal? Is he?
Yeah.
6,400.
Okay.
I think it's worth considering Njoku as well, just with. I think tight end is a bit weak in this week.
Yeah, he's 5,600 in Njoku. It's really
tight end too.
Tight end. He's the top, and he's 1,200 clear.
Oh, he's number one.
Yeah.
Who would have had the odds on that? Yeah, who would have had the odds on that? I start the year with Kelsey there.
Yeah,
who'd have had the odds on that when he burnt his face off 16 weeks ago, or whatever it was.
Well, he's been on fire lately, so.
Hey. Apologies to David and Njoku and family with that very crash joke. Coming from the guy who makes the nasty jokes. Anything else to add for this one before we move on? Cool. Just a reminder, as we've touched on there, we'll talk about Fantasy Gameday. Fantasy Gameday is going to be available for all of Wildcard weekend. So it's the Wildcard Stars game covering Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So all 6 games in there. So all 12 teams to choose from. Plenty of choice there. You can, if you've not taken part yet, you can still take part. You can still win money. Top 20% of entries win. Go download it now from your App Store or Google Play Store. When you sign up, register using promo code COVER, all in capital letters. Charlie, Oscar, Victor, Echo, Romeo, you'll get yourself a free play after your first entry. It's 2 for 1, so have 2 shots at it, and who knows, you might win some cash. We've been in pretty good form recently. I think it's 2 of the last 3 weeks we've won some money on Fantasy Gameday, so long may that continue. Let's move on to our next game then. The frozen tundra of Kansas City, Missouri on Saturday night. The Chiefs against the Dolphins. The Dolphins are 4.5-point underdogs on the road. Over-under on this one's 44. First of all, I think the impact of this game, I think it's just all set up. And I know, Byron, you've gone the other way. Me and Joe are on the Chiefs. I can't see the Sunshine Boys from South Florida coming up to this. It's just going to be awful for them.
Yeah, it's going to be unpleasant for everybody, I think. I'm not going to say it's easy coming from Miami to that cold, but what I think is important is Miami run the ball so well. They're, I think, the 5th or 6th most rushing yards in the league last year. The Chiefs' rushing defense is fine. It's middle of the pack. It's not great. It's okay. And I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a lot of ground and pound. I don't think it's going to be I think it's going to be an attractive under game. What did you say the under was? 44?
It's 44, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd be leaning under. And if a team's getting 4.5 points in a game, I think it's going to be probably close to 34 than 34. I'll take the Dolphins to lean it and keep it close and maybe try and sneak it towards the end.
Joe, how are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the conditions feel like it suits the Chiefs in terms of how they play that. Right now, their defense is better than Miami's, and especially with all the injuries, when you look out who's not playing for the Dolphins. So, Xavier Howard's already ruled out. Jalen Holland's questionable. Mostert's questionable. Waddle questionable. So, you need all them players to even have a chance. I can see the Dolphins getting the lead, like get up 7-0, and people are like, start worrying. But then the Chiefs feel like they're going to just come back into it and start, Mahomes kind of things. I don't think it's going to be a spectacular game. I'm with Byron. I'll be banging on the under because when I saw 44, especially with that weather, I was like, wow, that's a lot higher than I expected. But I think the Chiefs are just going to sneak in. I just think the Dolphins have just not performed against big teams. So to expect them to just suddenly pull out of the hat in the playoffs, I can't really see it. We actually get the Tyreek Hill revenge game in Kansas this time. I know a lot of people weren't happy that it was in Germany, that he wasn't able to go back. So he actually had an opportunity. But like I said, with the injuries, I think Waddle's the key piece. I think if he plays, Miami has got a chance. I think if he doesn't, then I think the Chiefs defense is going to suffocate Miami, and they're going to win a low-scoring game, probably by a touchdown or 10 points, just because I feel like Miami offense just shrinks a little bit in these big games, and especially if it's going to be that cold and this kind of pressure without the best players, I can't see them winning the Chiefs.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, Joe, these two teams met back in week 9. It was a Chiefs home game, designated home game, but it was in Frankfurt, Germany. Chiefs won 24-14, held off a second half comeback from the Dolphins. Too much to read into that game? Was that too long ago to read too much into it?
I would say it's too long ago just because these teams have changed. I think injuries have massively. We didn't realize the Chiefs' issues offensively. They were still there, but we didn't think they were that big. They've got a few wide receivers like Justin Ross and Tony as well as, not the best wide receivers, but you're taking options out. So I'm not going to take much from it just because it was such a long time ago and the different teams now. Still going with the Chiefs.
I found it interesting you mentioned there about, Dolphins don't beat anyone good. The Patriots had more wins against teams with a plus 500 record this year than the Dolphins. And Bill Belichick just got fired for it. So,
yeah. It's an interesting thought. I think I'm heavy on the Chiefs. I got the Chiefs at -4 earlier in the week. Sense this number might go out. And I just think, I think it's just the accumulation of injuries, and I just think it's a bad spot for them. If I knew most of it's banged up, I know always the Dolphins seem to abandon the run at times. They did last week when they kind of had Buffalo where they wanted them.
Yeah.
And just completely veered away from it. They were killing. A-Chain were running for 8 and 10 yards for fun, and they just stopped. Most it's banged up. If he's limited practice, so that would indicate he probably will play. But how fit is he going to be? The secondary is a problem. And I know it's not, the Chiefs aren't exactly primed to be able to take advantage of that. But there's one person that can, and that's Rashee Rice. I think I'm big on the Chiefs, and I'm big on the under in this one just because of the conditions. And I think we're probably going to see, for me, a huge Isaiah Pacheco game. Should be back. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I am. I think the Chiefs might just kill them with a run, make them commit the extra body, and then that's where you might see Rashee Rice and Kelsey get some joy. Pacheco's over yards are only 65.5. I find that insane. I think that's crazy low.
Yeah, you can get his alternate as well, like plus 82.5 is plus 200. Over 100 is plus 500, which certainly appeals. And then his rush attempts is 15.5 for minus 150, which I think that is going to be a ground and pound game. The Dolphins aren't up because I guess Ricky Mostert's status.
Yeah,
it's causing an issue there.
But plus, so depending who you bet with, but bet 365, looking at Pacheco milestone 125 yards is plus 1200.
Ooh, yeah, it's worth a little punt, isn't it?
Yeah,
at the very least.
Yeah. Any other bets? Would you, because of the kind of what we've talked about at the game and the weather is going to be one of the coldest NFL games in history, I think, on Saturday. Would you take any fantasy game day? Would you take Pacheco, for example?
Possibly. He's not like a slam dunk though. He'd one I'd have to look and see how it impacts the rest of the lineup. Would be 6, my cowardly answer.
Oh yeah.
I imagine there's going to be players I'd rather get in, just expecting a higher points total.
Cool. Anything else to add? Any of the bets or anything with Chiefs, Dolphins?
I do like it. Cheney's plus money for an anytime touchdown. Not going to, win you the lottery with it, but I think it's just a really solid bet.
Plus 137 for Devon A-Chain, yeah. Cool. Right, let's move on. Let's move into Sunday. We've got the early game, and we're all on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers got a favour to get into the playoffs last week. The Bills beat the Dolphins to secure the AFC East and one, possibly two, one, and if they win two, home playoff games. Pittsburgh Steelers are 10-point underdogs on the road. Over-under in this one's low. It's 35.5. Yeah, I think we kind of discussed this maybe the other day on the review. I'm liking the Steelers plus 10. I think the Steelers could win outright if TJ Watt was playing. Sadly, he's not going to be.
Yeah, I've gone the Steelers as well. I thought that plus 10 was nuts, especially with what the over and under is. So, if they figure 35 to then say most of the points are going to be for the Bills, I was shocked at that. I think the Bills are still going to win, but I just don't think it's going to be more than 10 points. Like, the Bills haven't blown anyone out all season, so I don't know why they would do that now. And they've, it feels like they played down to the level of the team they're playing. So, goes down to Steelers level, and they've had closer games against teams who are a lot worse than the Steelers as well. So 10 points was crazy. I thought so. I'm banking. I'm going all in on Steelers. I think it's going to be like you've said, like a low scoring game in the teens. Josh Allen's going to play hero ball, which I've mentioned all year, where he thinks, I could easily just get a first down there. I might have a chance to get a 40-yard touchdown and then just throw it straight into the arms of the DB. So I think that's going to happen a few times. And I think we're going to come out of this game like, the Bills won, but are they actually, a competent team to go all the way with how they're playing? That defense is looking a lot better, though, compared to the last few weeks. But, it feels like the Steelers have actually got an explosive element to the offense now, which I don't think I would have been saying that 3 weeks ago. But, Rudolph can certainly put it down the field, and the two wide receivers are making big catches. So you only need that to happen once, twice, and 14 points, and that's probably enough to get it within 10. So.
Yeah, I think the Steelers have also been killing teams running the ball as well, haven't they? They've been running the ball real effectively. And they've lent back more to Harris than Warren recently, and it's working for them. Actually, I've seen Najee Harris be able to move again. don't know if he's just dropped a little bit of weight. He was looking very chunky early on in the season, but yeah, they're running the ball a lot more effectively, which I think is going to be key. I think Josh Allen, I don't know if it was his worst game last week, but he was terrible last week. The mistakes he was making, particularly in the red zone. Again, I thought, TJ Watt is a huge miss, but I still think the Steelers can pressure him. I still think the Steelers can get to him without TJ Watt. And that may be where the mistakes come from. Just a couple of bits from this one. So the under is 8-2 in the last 10 meetings between these two, including the last 4 in a row. The last 3 meetings in Buffalo have hit the under. Steelers are 18-12 against the spread in their last 30 as a road underdog. However, they've not covered their last 3 as a 10-plus point underdog. So as a big underdog, they've not covered. Under is just 6-3 in Bills' home games this season. Just a lot of unders. And this one, last one, I know I've thrown a lot, but since Josh Allen was drafted to the Bills in 2018, the Bills have been 10-point or more home favorites 14 times. They've won all 14 games outright, but are 6-2 against the spread, including not covering the last 5 in a row as a 10-plus point home favorite. The last team to beat the Buffalo Bills as a 10-plus point home favorite were?
The Cardinals.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
No way.
Pre-Tomlin, though, it was back in January 2005, and the Steelers won the game 29-24.
I did have a couple of extra stats to lay on top of that, I guess. But both these teams hit the under 11 times this season. Both had 6 overs, 11 unders. Steelers 10-7 against the spread. Bills 7-10 against the spread. So again, I think just more things that kind of point towards Steelers' potential. And I think one of the things I don't think has been mentioned so far, the weather's not going to be as cold as Kansas City, but then wind gusts are going to be insane, up to 50 miles an hour. Josh Allen is plus 130 to throw over 1.5 interceptions, which I think is a nice bet. He was getting called out by Sean McDermott at the end of the first half last week for not throwing into the end zone. Basically, you can't do it. Could be some friction there. Josh Allen, like Joe says, plays hero ball. I think who's more likely to want to play an ugly game and just pound Najee Harris 20 times and Jalen Warren another 10? Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, it's the
perfect game
for the Steelers to just kind of muck it up and make it messy.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph is not throwing much, and when he does, it'll be deep balls with one-on-one chances to try and get those big chunk plays. I don't think that ball's going 10 yards unless it's going 20 yards. I don't think there's going to be much middle action, if that makes sense. It's either going to be very safe or very risky, like very deep, where it's safe in its own right because it's one-on-one and it's either an arm punt or it's a touchdown. I just think Steelers are going to want to play that game. They're going to grind those possessions. And 10 points is a lot to make up when a team's going to do that, even without TJ Watt.
Yeah, to your point, Joe, I see it's like it's been a real low-scoring game. Again, I love on the props. Najee Harris, 57.5 rushing yards.
Yeah.
I'm a schmuck at the end of the day, but that just seems 10, 15 yards too low. If he's going to run the ball 20, 22, 20 plus times. And I guess that depends. If the Bills manage to get out to a big lead early, then that's different. You have to start throwing the ball maybe. But I think Steelers just ground and pound, and you could get that cashed before halftime.
Yeah, and I think with some of the Bills' injuries as well, going into the game with Rasul Douglas has probably been their best defender since he was traded, and Gabe Davis not practicing again today. It just limited both sides of their play, which I think another reason why I think it'll be a tight game. And Mike Tomlin, road underdog,
Yeah.
Not as impressive in the playoffs, but yeah.
There you go. And any fantasy game day considerations for this one? Anyone you touch?
I think it would have to be Najee, if anyone.
I'm curious what Josh Allen's is, because even though he's playing bad games, he gets a touchdown or two every single week, and he just somehow scores 20 or 30 points even when having bad games. So I don't know where it would be, to be honest, but if he's not crazy price and you needed a quarterback, I think that could also be a decent shout.
Yeah,
Harris,
£5,000, and he's gone over 120 yards 2 games in a row on the ground. And then Josh Allen, so I'm not going to pick apart our team. He's the most expensive quarterback this week. I guess they're saying the 10 point favorites, 8,200.
I'll stay away then.
I'll be staying away from Josh Allen.
I'm surprised he's the most expensive, to be honest, but
by a lot as well. He's £1,200 ahead of the next one. Also, would you ever feel you're in a situation where Joe Flacco is more expensive than Dak Prescott?
Doesn't seem to add up, especially with Joe Flacco on the road and Dak at home, but
maybe 6 years ago.
Maybe before Dak was drafted, yeah.
Hey, just to know, I know we've talked about the game. Joe Flacco's never lost in the wildcard round.
Wow.
First time for everything.
Big one, that.
Played 6 games in the wildcard and won all 6.
Great stuff.
Off the Ravens. Anything else to add for this one before we move on? Okay, let's move into our next game, and this one is a storyline laden game. Green Bay Packers 7.5-point underdogs on the road to the Dallas Cowboys, and these two have met in the playoffs twice in kind of the last. It's 10 years since the Des game, isn't it? So, and also met in 2016. Mike McCarthy facing the team he won a Super Bowl with in the playoffs. And a classic rivalry. All set up to be a great game. The under-over in this one, over-under, whatever, is 50.5. Seems quite high. I've gone Packers just out, Cowboys just out of loyalty. We talked about the other day. I do kind of think 7.5 might be too many. Joe, you sided with the Packers. Do you think the Packers are going to win outright, or is that more Packers to cover and lose a close one against Dallas?
Internally, I feel like the Packers could win and want them to win. But when I think about it more and more, I feel like just because, based on who I'd rather face later on, I don't think the Cowboys
rather face Dallas.
I still think they could pull an upset and, everything, the circus what goes with that. But when I think about more and more, I feel the Cowboys are probably going to win, especially being at home and how good they've been. But we said that against Detroit, and Detroit had a chance to win it there. And I know Green Bay is not as good as Lions, but I don't think that they're too far off now. I think the last few games have proven that. I think John Love's taken huge steps the last 5 or 6 games where he's looked really impressive in that offense with numerous weapons. All the young wide receivers seem like they're stepping up and getting Aaron Jones back. I think they can keep it close. I think they need to make it one of them games where there's not many possessions between each team. They can't just go 3 and out a couple of times. I think Dallas are going to score points. You need to try and limit their possessions and try and just keep running the ball and have the ball as much as possible and then score when you're in the red zone. I think, both quarterbacks are looking good. Like, you've got to be confident with how Dak's playing. But again, it's the playoffs. Does that change anything? He's still susceptible to an interception, and could that cost him game? I think the Cowboys are going to win, but I think it's going to be a really close game. I think it's going to come down to a field goal where, the rookie sensation has actually wins it for the Cowboys for once instead of the other way around. So, but if the Packers win, are they get their old coach fired? That's a nice little storyline. What would happen as well?
Yeah, so I do think Jerry will pull the trigger on Matt McCarthy if they lost in the wildcard round. I think it's NFC Championship or get to the championship game or bust for Matt McCarthy.
Agree.
And that's not just what I would want to happen. I think Jerry's, he's had this team for 4 years now. You could write off the first year. Dak had that obviously broken ankle, but they also had the best backup in the league in Andy Dalton and did nothing. Should have won that division. I think Washington won it with a losing record.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at had Andy Dalton did nothing.
It's true.
It is true. I had Andy Dalton. It's just a funny sentence.
Yeah. Andy Dalton 3 years ago. And then the manner of the losses against the Niners in the playoffs,
Yeah.
both close games. And I would expect that if they get to a championship game, it would be very close again. And again, I'd have the Niners as an edge, but Niners got to win a game to get there yet as well. But yeah, I would. I think
I've got to win a couple.
Yeah. Well, your problem of doing that, of firing a coach in the playoffs, is you are then miles behind everybody else who's trying to get a coach.
Yeah.
Because most of those teams most of those teams next week will have hired somebody.
Yep.
But can they hire? I know they changed the rules where they can actually interview coordinators from other teams, but can they actually hire them or not? Like actually,
I think it can be. I don't think it can be announced, but
okay. It can be done, can't it?
Yeah, I get that, but like Cowboys are the team what I think any coach would choose out of all the other ones. So I'm sure you'll be able to persuade, like, just don't go to the Cardinals, just like come to us. I'm sure they could make that kind of
vacancy.
Sorry,
he just fired Jim Gannon.
There you go. Yeah, so the Panthers just like stay away from them, and they might keep Dan Quinn from going over to Seattle. That could be another option as well. So
yeah, I wouldn't. I think he's penciled in. I think for Seahawks, in my opinion, but my main thing of going with the Cowboys is just that home record. How bright are the lights going to be for Jordan Love in his first playoff game, and not a great place to come and make your playoff debut. Dallas is so strong at home.
I think my thing with that is this is a free hit for the Packers, right?
Absolutely.
This is
what a season.
Overachieved in terms of getting to the playoffs. They've won. They won 10 games, right? Finished 10-7. Yeah, won 10 games. Jordan Love's the guy. These young players, mostly on offense, have showed enough to go. We can keep these guys around. Yep. We can build around. And it's
pure offense as well, because it just means they'll carry on drafting defense only.
Yeah,
and doing nothing with it. Apparently, hopefully there's a change in the. Dallas put such a good show up that defensive coordinator change happens come Monday. Would be nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Packers defense is probably where we'll be won and lost, because the last few games have actually played really well against teams you're expecting. I know the Vikings have got a backward quarterback, but they still restricted them and going to the
really
Bears.
Well.
Yeah, and the Bears are firing on all cylinders. They felt like in a few games, and they restricted them to either nothing. So if they turn up, then I think he'll make a tight game. But if they play like they were playing 4 or 5 weeks ago, then I think it could be a blowout where Cowboys would just put up the points and then just run it for the rest of the way. Because I think Pollard looked a bit better against last week. But it just reminds me, like I've mentioned, that Lions game, because it felt like the Lions went in there with like a free punt as well, where they were going to, another one for the 2 points at the end to win it. But it also felt like they proved something maybe to everyone that, the Cowboys are not indestructible at home, that you can restrict him, you can run on this defense, and, this defense can give up, which they've done a few times, the final drive, and the team can just dink and dunk and have the chance to win it. So that's why I just went the Packers, just because, how close that game was.
Yeah, the Seahawks, they just got by the Seahawks in the home game previous to that as well. So, and my worry is that this Dan Quinn defense is breaking down. They've stopped really. They only started to get to Sam Howell last week when they had the big lead. It's a team that has to play from being in front and a defense that needs a lead. But it's my worry is they can't stop the run. Although Jonathan Hankins, I think he's going to be back and going to be playing. I think that's huge for Dallas. Huge for stopping the run, because Mazi Smith just has not been it when he's had his chance with Hankins being out. Really has not been it. I think Jonathan Hankins in the middle is going to be huge, and that will help being able to kind of create some problems in the middle of the line for Green Bay. But we've got to stop the run. I've got to get that pass rush going again, because you can't have Jordan Love sat there, picking you apart. I think Gilmore's going to play, isn't he? Like his shoulder popped out back in, but that's okay. And I think from Packers, they've got to draw up a plan to try and stop or limit CeeDee Lamb, because he's just, again, what he got for 220 odd yards against the Lions. Had a relatively quiet game last week. I think he had 2 touchdowns and 90 yards against the Commanders. I don't know if someone's popped in the chat, but I read the article a couple of hours ago. Jerry Alexander, I think he rolled his ankle while he was jogging. Yeah. And he's questionable now, which would be huge.
But has he not been playing the last few games where they've looked good? So
he played last week.
I played last week, but I know he's suspended the week
missed the
before
Vikings
that,
game after his coin toss shenanigans.
Yeah.
And just one last tie-in on this Dallas, Green Bay playoff, etc. The last time Dallas covered the home playoff spread was January 9, 2010, which is a little while ago. In fact, it's so long ago. The next day, Aaron Rodgers started his first playoff game.
Wild. Let's go over, because obviously we've all, I've certainly looked them up this afternoon, and Cowboys' recent record against the Packers is not great. Let's say this. Packers have won 9 out of the last 10. outright against the Cowboys, covering spread 8-2 against the spread over those 10. Packers have won the last 4 meetings in Dallas. 4-0 against the spread in those. Also, the over is 9-1 in the last 10 meetings between the two teams in Dallas, including the last 6 in a row.
Points.
And also the Packers' last 5 road games to end the season hit the over as well. But that Cowboys home record, it's 16 in a row that they've won outright, 12-4 against the spread in those.
Yeah.
And you're not playing Rodgers. I think that's a big thing as well, that you're playing a young, technically like a rookie quarterback, his first full season. So, yeah, take the last 10 games as you won.
Yeah, and this is the 7th time the Packers and Cowboys are going to have met in the playoffs as well, going back to 1983. Any bets we like in this one?
Not really a bet, but I'm happy to pay up for CD Lamb in Fantasy Gameday. I'm guessing he's the most expensive player on the slate.
Yeah, he's 8,200 for CD this week.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Yeah, and I was shocked that like Prescott wasn't the most expensive, just because.
Yeah,
if CD is going to get all them points, then Prescott is as well, and I think he's going to cook this. Like if it goes how I expect it to go, I think it's going to be like a shootout, like you said, and I think Prescott's going to get some points. And then on the flip side, you could, if you've spent too much on other players, then Jordan Love could be a nice little pick up at quarterback, just because I think, again, the Dallas defense hasn't looked amazing all the time. And I think with all them weapons, with, Christian Watson and Musgrave coming back as well, he's got plenty to choose from. And I think he could be a high scoring quarterback as well.
Couple of prop bets I like in this one, and maybe not the ones maybe you'd expect. I think Aaron Jones has been a beast since he's come back the last few weeks for the Packers. Again, talked about Jonathan Hankins back, being able to kind of help stop the run a little bit for Dallas, but Jones's prop's only 72.5 yards. So unless the Packers get down big early, I think we'll see that. Aaron Jones has historically had great success running against Dallas in whatever form the defense is. I remember that 4-touchdown game that we gave up to Aaron Jones. I love 72.5. I also love Jordan Love rushing yards. It's over 8.5. Thinking flushing out, he might be able to break one for 20. Just the way that pass rushes, he might just have to evade and use his legs a little bit. 8.5 yards. I think it's good. And also same premise with Dak, 13.5 yards. His prop as well. So again, Dak can typically break off a 15-20 yard run if he gets a bit of space and the pocket's collapsing. He's a strong enough runner. So yeah, just some slightly different props that I like there.
Yeah, just to back you up there as well. Only Kyler Murray averaged more yards per scramble than Jordan Love this season. Averaged 9.1 yards per scramble. So yeah, like you said, just a couple of those and you're set.
Yeah. Any other for Fantasy Game Day? Any sort of value picks you'd go from a Packers perspective? Because a lot of their players are relatively cheap.
I think Joe's mentioned there, Luke Musgrave is back practicing. I think I'd be tempted to maybe bang in the cheaper tight end, whichever it may be, truthfully. Tucker Kraft's looked really good as well. I think they've really hit on, we say a lot, all their young receivers, the last couple of years have all been hit. And I don't know who's going to be the cheapest wide receiver, really, but I absolutely love Jaden Reed. He's one of my favourite rookies to watch, period. But Dontavian Wicks had 2 touchdowns last week. He's had such a strong second half of the season.
Yeah. So
if any of them are in bargain mode, I don't think Jaden Reed will be. He's too good. But yeah, sorry, yeah, a couple there.
Kraft and Musgrave are only separated by £200, so 2,400 for Musgrave, 2,200 for Kraft. Reed's 5,400, so he's the most expensive of them. Wicks 3,400.
I like Wicks at that price a lot.
Yeah. And who's the...
Bo Melton?
Melton. Who's
just a lot more time. Yeah, because they got Dobbs, and obviously if Christian Watson comes back, that's like 7 targets. And then you've got your 2, and you've got your wide receivers who they throw to plenty of times. It's they've got a lot of targets and a lot of weapons. So
yeah, should be a good one. I think I'm real nervous. I think it's gonna be really, really close. And yeah, if I was taking my Dallas hat off, I'd love the Packers not necessarily to win the game, but a 7.5. It just feels like a lot of points, but I couldn't do it. Couldn't put the Packers in there. We've talked about this one with Steve from the Raw Alliance podcast already, so we'll just touch on this one. The storylines in this one are great. Stafford, with the Rams going to Detroit. Detroit hosting the first playoff game for 30 years. And they are 3-point favourites, the Detroit Lions. This is a big over-under as well. I think it's the biggest of the week. It's 51.5. Let's just get into kind of the bets really side of things. We're me and Byron on the Rams. Byron, what's made you pick the Rams?
I think they're the better team, and they're getting a 3-point head start. Lions shit the bed on Thanksgiving. That was a big home game. Their biggest in goodness knows how long. I don't really worry that Detroit are going to shit the bed again, but I'm very confident the Rams are in a good headspace. And like I say, I think right now they're probably a better team than Detroit. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you know what's crazy? You talked about Stafford. I've not really heard mentioned it's like Goff's going back as well against his.
Well, it's a Goff revenge game. It's not a Stafford revenge game. Yeah. It's a. I did see Jared Goff was asked about it, and he was kind of like, that trade will stay with me the rest of my life. And it's like, it will. Like, your head coach publicly, you were a salary dump. Nobody viewed Jared Goff as a long-term starter for Detroit when he got traded there. And he's done incredible. I'm pleased for him as well, because he seems like a good guy, Jared Goff. As much as I think he got a lot of shit when he entered the league as like a Cali kid who wouldn't tough it out and all the rest of it. He seems like a real good leader, and he seems a tough fella and seems a good guy. I really hope Detroit win, but I've picked the Rams.
Yeah. Joe, you've settled with the Lions. Make the case for the Lions.
I think this is one I struggle on the most, just because I think I've mentioned it a few times. I always worry of Jared Goff in big games, but I just have this feeling that the Lions are going to win this, and I feel like the Rams have been playing well, but we were just thinking that are we overestimating their actual ability. Obviously, they've got the two weapons in Stafford, but there've been plenty of games with tight games. I just think Lions are home. I think a few players are going to step up, which are like Amari St. Brown. I think is going to have a huge game. I think Gibbs and Montgomery having them as well. I think they can cause damage as well, being indoors, which it suits both of them. So I just went. I understand what Byron's saying, but I still think the Lions are the better team. And I think they've been the better team over the season. So I've just lent with them. I'd obviously this was like a coin toss. I was flipping them back and forth, especially with the 3 points. But I just thought I'd go with my heart and go with Dan Campbell, the man.
MCDC. Yeah, I think this is probably the most exciting game of the weekend, I think, for this one, for storyline driven. It's a big over-under. It's 51.5. I always get nervous. It's Sunday night football as well. I know it's the playoffs, but it is still Sunday night football, and I haven't seen too many big high-scoring games. Yeah, it's tough. When I said the Rams, I think I'll be betting the Rams +3. So apologies, Steve, and the Royal Lions guys.
The only time the Rams, not the Rams, the Lions won a playoff game was January 5th, 1992. Do you know what was number one on that day?
Oh, is it?
UK?
UK, yes.
Okay.
Oh, I think I'd seen something that it was Santana.
It was not Santana.
US. That might have been the US.
Maybe
one.
US. I don't know. Yeah.
Right. So what was it again? Give me the date again. January 92.
January 5th, 1992. Yeah. What was UK number one?
Is this Brian Adams? I'm gonna
get. It's not Brian Adams. It was Brian Adams later in the year. Yeah, but not.
Oh, I want to get one of these. It's going to be Brian Adams.
Because that was
what's weird is I actually looked up the movie and I guessed the movie before I looked it up. I was very impressed. I don't know how I'm.
Okay. Is it Bodyguard? Is it when he's?
Is it Whitney?
No.
Because obviously I was born a few 2 months before that, and I know what number one was, which was Michael Jackson, Black and White. But I don't think he would have held on.
It didn't know. I'll give you a little clue. If the Lions do win, the fans are going to be saying is this real life? Is this just fantasy?
Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody.
He's got it from those clues. Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, and number one film, which I somehow guessed. I don't know how. I was like, oh, it'd be funny if it was Hook, because then I could figure out a Hook pun, and it was Hook. But then I didn't bother thinking of a pun. So just a little fun fact that it was Hook, that was number one movie in the UK that day as well.
Excellent.
Good luck to the Lions.
Good luck to the Lions. Just a bit on this one. So just a little bit of the public betting. 84% of the money and 72% of the bets are on the Rams +3.
I mean, I agree with it, but I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Lions good at home though, 15-5 against the spread in the last 20 at home. The over's 14-6 in those. and Rams road overs have hit 6 and 3 this year. So
has there been any update on Sam Laporte? 'Cause I haven't looked into it.
Practice today, limited.
Practice.
Yeah,
That's
so
massive.
I think
I'm
he's gonna
stunned.
play, which is huge. Yeah.
Yeah, it just came out right before we started recording.
Yeah, I think that's massive. Any fantasy game day considerations for this one? If as per the total indicates, it may be a high scoring game.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to get Stafford and a receiver in there, depending again price wise. But the way Puka Nakua's season's gone, Cooper Kupp got the week off last week. Stafford got the week off last week. Puka got the majority off after he finally got his record. If there's somewhere to get them both in there and really go high end, I don't hate it. But yeah, I'd be happy with just getting Stafford and one in there.
Yeah, Stafford 6,800, Puka 5,800, and Cup 6,200. So Nakua's still a cheaper option. Yeah.
I'd take Puka in the discount. I think.
Yeah.
And what's St. Brown?
7,000.
Okay. So I think he's going to have a huge game. I think if the Lions are going to win, he's going to have to go off. So.
Yeah, I think you're looking. He's going to get he'll get double-digit targets in the game. Yeah, I also love Goff over half in interceptions plus 135. Not wishing bad luck to Bethel, Jared Goff, but I'm a bit with you, Joe. The big game, maybe he just kind of makes a bit of mistakes. I think the pressure in his face as well. You've got that combination of Aaron Donald and Kobe Turner just potentially could cause havoc. A lot of obviously they're going to play, but a lot of the Lions interior or line guys are banged up and are on that injury report. And the last thing you need when you're banged up after a long 18-week season is Aaron Donald running at you.
It wouldn't be high on your list.
Yeah,
I was annoyed to see there was no touchdown market for Taylor Decker or Dan Skipper, because I'd be tempted by a little punt, because that's what he'd do with that.
I think the game would have to be kind of well in hand before you start whipping that out, I think.
I think that's Dan Campbell, though, because you expect it when it's out of hand. When it's YOLO, that's when it's coming in. But yeah, you can't even get over 0.5 receptions on DraftKings. So.
Well, I was curious about the punters throw yards as well, because that could be...
That could well be one, yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell ain't going to lie down if this game... He's not going to lie down if it's 0-0. What am I saying? I was going to say if it gets out of hand. If it's 0-0, he'll be going YOLO anyway. So.
How many fake punt plays do you think they've got? Because they burned one in week 16 against Dallas, and they burned one last week.
Probably loads. It's Dan Campbell.
I feel like he burned one last week.
Eating kneecaps and drawing up fake punts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll see. If
I did just see a prop bet, though, when I was looking to see if I could get any punter or tackle bets. Nakua and Jahmyr Gibbs to combine for 15 or more receptions is plus 700, which...
Oh, wow.
I really like that, yeah, because I think Gibbs has been getting more involved as the season's gone on, and again, the way Dan Campbell is very emotional. I don't think he'll want to go down wondering, should I got Jahmyr Gibbs the ball more? I could see him getting plenty of usage this week.
Yeah, it's good. So there's some lines, and Amon-Ra St. Brown one's 90 or 89.5. Yeah. I don't know. I think could see if it does go in a bit of a shootout. Stafford and Goff 261.5, 274.5. Passing yards lines, which are interesting. Passing completions are both at 23.5 as well.
Can you see what Jameson Williams is? What his
He's been getting more involved down the stretch.
Yeah. Jameson Williams 36.5.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's the potential a lot of value to be had in that if it does end up in the predicted shootout. Let's finish off then. Monday Night Football, probably the least exciting of the games. I think that's fair to say. We've already seen this one as well, all the way back in week 3. The Eagles beat the Buccaneers in Tampa, 25-11. A lot's changed since then, particularly for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are 3-point favourites on the road in Tampa, and the over-under for this is 43.5, which I think is a huge number, by the way, where these two teams are at the minute. Two teams that have limped into the playoffs. Would that be the fairest way to...
Absolutely, 100%, yeah.
Yeah. Joe, talk to us about the Bucs. You've on the Bucs with the +3.
Yeah, I was surprised you two went the Eagles, to be honest, with all the slander you've had the last few weeks. Yeah, I just think the Eagles are broken, and I think the Buccaneers have not played well the last 2 weeks, but it feels like they had their good game a lot closer than Eagles. Feels like they haven't played well for ages. While the Bucs, it was like 3 weeks ago, we were thinking, they're going to easily beat the Eagles. So, and I just see that Eagles defense just can be got at, and Baker Mayfield again. I'm just gambling that he has a big game, and I think this could be a huge Mike Evans, Godwin games where they can pick on those defense backs and the linebackers, and I know what I've seen is like the main Eagles players are going to be playing, but how fit are they going to be? It's one thing saying is it locked and they're actually going to play, but how fit are they going to be? And that's huge, especially like AJ Brown, because the Buccaneers defense and especially their DBs have had a great year. So I think they can restrict this Eagles offense. And even if the Eagles win, I think it's only going to be, by 1 or 2 points. I think it's going to be super close. I can't see the Eagles blowing them out, just how they've played the last 6-7 weeks.
I think if I'd have just got 2 okay performances from Tampa, week 17, week 18, I'd be all over the Buccaneers here, because I've been an advocate for them all season long. I think they've had a great year. I've been really impressed with what they've done. But those 2 performances against the Saints and against the Panthers were horrible. They were really bad, and they were very, very fortunate they were playing the Panthers, because if they played any other team in the league in week 18, they'd have got beaten. They wouldn't be here.
Yeah, but the Eagles had just as bad a performance against the Giants and Cardinals, who's like on the level. So
yeah, I just think maybe obviously the Eagles' ceiling is a lot higher. I know they've not got there a lot this year. And I also think the Eagles are going to win this one, because I think, very similar to how we talked about Mike McCarthy earlier, if Nick Sirianni loses this game, he's in the dole queue. If the Eagles go from 10-1 to losing to the NFC South division winner, he's gone. I think he's coaching for his job here, and I think as a result, they will find a way to win.
Be weird to think come Tuesday we might have only Brian Daboll is the only coach who kept his job in the NFC East.
Could very much be the case.
Certainly, if the 2 good teams lose, I think it would happen. Mm-hmm. My biggest concern of this week, I think AJ Brown's knee is a big issue. He didn't practice again today. Baker Mayfield looked absolutely smashed. His ribs injury didn't look good on Sunday. I kind of worry if he will tough it out, because Baker Mayfield, for any of the things people call him, he's tough, and he will tough a game out. He's a goer. He'll want to be out there whatever state he's in. But the Eagles' defense has been bad, but 1 or 2 hits on Baker Mayfield, and I think he could be out the game. He looks not great, and I have no idea what Kyle Trask is, but I don't think this is the occasion you want to try and find out.
Yeah, and I think he will play. The ankle injury that he got last week as well. He is absolutely no way. There's no.
He's not going to miss it, but
and there's
if
also
he gets hurt in game.
I don't see there's any way that Baker, unless he's like concussion, there's no way he comes out of that game. It's just his nature. I think this is a big game so it was obviously much heralded and lauded, and rightly so, last year. This Eagles D-line needs to show up big, and I think it will do. We know the Buccaneers don't run the ball particularly well, and I think it might just give the Eagles the opportunity to pressure Mayfield, and that's where I think they'll get a lot of joy. But yeah, I mean, the Eagles are in bad shape. Hurts with that disgusting finger. How that finger wasn't broken, I still don't know. But yes, I think he'll be okay. But obviously, it's not going to be comfortable throwing the ball. So I think we're going to see a big Eagles game on the ground as well. And as much as it's time for this Eagles D-line to stand up, it's time for these experienced guys on this Eagles O-line to put a game together, because they haven't done it for a very long time. I just think they'll settle down, and it won't be great, it won't be pretty, and they might not win by a lot, but I think the Eagles will get through to next week.
Yeah. One of the trends I've noticed in this as well. Bucks home playoff games all time 1-8, so 1 over 8 unders. The Eagles' last 3 road playoff games all gone under. The Eagles' last 4 regular season games on the road have all gone under. Basically, I'm telling you, I like the under.
He bloody loves the under. Yeah,
And,
I do. At the start, I think 43.5 is a big number.
The Bucks home games this season as well. I think it's 1 over 6 unders.
Yeah, 6 and 2. Yeah,
6 and 2. Sorry, yeah. So, first one was done over. Yeah, give me the under.
Yeah, I like the one. I think 43.5 is crazy. I thought this might have been 37, 38. Yeah. I think 43.5 is crazy. That's already on my sheet as an under. I've already bet my, but not the prop ones have gone on yet, but all my over under and spreads have all been bet already. 6 games, 7 bets.
Healthy. Despite not fancying the Bucks really in this game and liking the under, I do think kind of take your pick. I prefer Chris Godwin to Mike Evans this week, but I think either of them are good fantasy game day because that's how you beat the Eagles. You throw the ball. And with how, safety issues, you can beat that Eagles linebackers again. I think you could put Paul in the slot and he'd get 10 catches. Well, he'd get 2 catches, he'd get a couple of routes. But Chris Godwin's a lot better than Paul, no offense.
Thanks.
No problem. Hey, I'm not even put myself in the list, so,
Chris Godwin's had 45 targets in the last 5 games.
Yeah, he's really been focused on this offense, and I think that is the weak point, I think, of the many weak points of the Eagles' defense, is where he's best. Evans is more likely to go for 3 touchdowns, though, so...
I was just about to say that, yeah. It's like you either go Godwin, who's going to get you, or Evans could make or break where he might get 2 catches for 10 yards, or he could get, 10, 2 touchdowns, 150.
Yeah. Bit of a difference in price. Godwin's 4,600. Evans is 5,800. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
It's a lot, and he's had, obviously, a quieter couple of weeks for Mike Evans, yeah. Cool. Any other bets for this one?
I think I'm similar. I'm going to go under. And problem is with the Eagles, if they had one running back who are confident in, or who they're actually going to start, I would probably, like you said, with Jalen Hurts being day-to-day and being limited in practice with his finger, it feels like it's going to be a run-heavy. Maybe Hurts' rush yards. I know he's probably going to be quite a bit, but I feel like he might be scrambling around, and like we mentioned about Love and Prescott, I think he's one of the best, just getting out of the pocket and just making up the yardage.
Yeah, not on there yet, just I guess to the injury designation.
But
on DK, they've only got DeAndre Swift priced up for the Eagles.
And what's Swift? What's how many yards?
59.5.
Okay, I could see that. But again, they swapped the running backs a bit too much with Gamewell and a few others, so it's always tricky.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of the 6 games. We've previewed them all, so we'll continue. Well, we won't continue because Joe won it, but we'll have an ATS comp running for the playoffs. Our competition to replace our 4-fold challenge, we will get stuck into now. So definitely not stolen from the most popular sports podcast in the world. We're going to do a draft version of our 4. I think it's a little bit similar to our 4 shares. We're going to do a draft version. So we're going to take 2 picks each round of the playoffs. And that's going to be one, you've got to side with an underdog and a favourite, and an over and an under. Those are your 2 picks. And then we're going to draft them in a snake draft format. So as my booby prize for finishing last in the ATS Picks competition, I'm going to go first this week. Byron, you're going to go second. No. Joe, you're going to go second.
Doing it on reverse of the 4-fold.
Sorry, yeah. Joe, you're going to go second. And then Byron, you're going to go with 2 picks in a row and come back round. And then, whoever gets the most will at the end of the playoffs will win. This is just for fun because, I'm not putting that in. So I will be going first. With no guest involved in this one as well, so it's just the 3 of us. So I'm going to go first. What do I like the most? I've had obviously plenty of time to think about this.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm going to take Dolphins Chiefs under 44. Obviously, we talked about this game already. The weather Also, Chiefs home games have just been unders for a while now. It's not just been this season. Chiefs home games have been under for a while now as well. So unders 8-1 in Chiefs games this season, and that's the last 7 in a row. Factor in the fact it's going to be minus 16 or whatever it's going to be on Saturday night in Kansas. It's the recipe for an under. Astonished that this number's at 44. So I'm going to take Dolphins Chiefs under. Joe, over to you.
Oh, okay. That would have been my first pick as well.
I was going to say, at least you didn't do a Ric Flair, Paul.
Yeah.
I still stand by that. Sorry, Joe. The third greatest wrestler of all time. He's by far and away the greatest wrestler of all time. The third greatest wrestler of all time.
The people already told you what to think of it. There's no point trying to revisit it now.
Incredible value. Joe's with me on this one. You'd have had Ric Flair at the top, wouldn't you, Joe?
I don't know what the draft was. I wasn't there. I don't know the year. So I'm just going to no comment. Because I've seen your other picks, Paul. So, I can't really go hell bent and say I agree.
Joe's lived in Canada too long. So polite.
Oh, does that mean you pick Bret Hart, yeah?
Yeah, of course. He's from Calgary, so yeah.
Better pick.
That's insane. Right.
That's not insane.
Joe.
Anyway, Joe, you've had enough time here. I've been trying to stall for you.
Yeah, no worries. I'm going to go... I'm going to go for another under. I'm going to go Eagles-Bucks under 43.5.
That's what I was planning on going. Wanted one of them unders. Got neither of them. I will... Is it snake draft?
It is, yep.
Cool. I'll take the Steelers plus 10. Way too many points to give up.
Yeah, I agree.
And means we've got to take an over or an under. Shouldn't have rushed in with the Steelers there. I should have drawn that out.
Yeah.
Give me the over Browns Texans 44.5.
Yeah, I like that. All these bets are on my docket for the week as well. I've bet all of these already, which is worrying.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Well, I've had a good last few weeks. Right, so we've had, just to recap, I went Dolphins Chiefs under 44. Joe went Eagles Bucks under 43.5. Byron went Steelers plus 10, and then Browns Texans over. So Joe, you need a spread now.
It's tricky now, isn't it?
I think next week I'm going to have to fire some stats out for bets I don't want. I went too heavy on that Bengals, on the Bucks Eagles under. I should have, it could go over.
I didn't know whether we should do the draft first or not before we talk through the games. But
we'll see how the results play out of this one.
I'm going to go, let's do it. I'm going underdog. Am I going underdog? Yeah, underdog Packers versus...
Fuck you.
Versus Cowboys.
Fuck you. Like Detroit, but...
I picked Detroit to win.
Oh, yeah, underdog, yeah, sorry.
So that's obviously not one I've bet, so you can have that one, Joe. Yeah, fuck you. That was the third or fourth one. So that leaves me...
if you're that adamant about how you feel about Joe's pick, you can just go...
I'm not doing that.
Heads up.
Yeah, we're going to get into a situation where there's going to be some head-to-head picks, aren't we? Especially like by the time we get to conference championship. So I'm not going to do that, though. So there's two I love. I'm going to double up. I'm going to go Chiefs -4. I think the Chiefs are going to kill the Dolphins. Really do. This Dolphins team is soft. This Dolphins team is soft.
Same game.
Yeah, I've doubled up in the same game. This Dolphins team, so I thought one of you guys were going to take the Chiefs, to be honest.
Well, you should have a fair bet it wasn't me.
Yeah, but I think
I picked them to win.
Yeah, I think this Dolphins team's really, really soft, and I know the Chiefs aren't good, but it's a heck of a home advantage, isn't it? So yeah, Chiefs -4 for me. Oh, cool. Can I pop it on the screen, Joe?
No. Nowhere, not enough time to do that. I was going to do it quickly, but yeah, nah. I'll get it for the post.
It'll be up on our Instagram and Twitter over the next couple of days. Gents, that brings us to the end of our Super Wildcard Weekend Picks and Preview episode. We've not got many episodes left for the season. I'm feeling a bit sad about it.
Yeah, and they're going to go in quick as well.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit sad.
It's better to have loved and lost, Paul. So,
Is that what they're going to be sent to Mike McCarthy on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay, quick question: would you take it? Would you take getting beat by the Packers just to get rid of Mike McCarthy?
No, I want to win a Super Bowl.
I kind of might, because you can beat the Packers, but you won't win the Super Bowl. So what's the point?
They might win the Super Bowl.
They're not going to win the Super Bowl, Byron.
Not going to win the Super Bowl if they lose to the Packers.
Well, that's for sure. Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that Jerry Jones is going to appoint someone that wins the Super Bowl next year.
But
Dak Prescott's playing the best football of his career now. Yeah, I'm not taking a loss to anybody to sack Mike McCarthy.
All right.
I don't like Mike McCarthy. I'll be pleased when he goes, but it's a fucking playoffs. Yeah, no loss.
It's just a thought. It was just a thought sprung up. Right. We'll end the hypotheticals. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode, this week's preview episode, picks and preview episode. Good teams and great teams cover. As always, go give us a follow on Spotify to be notified of new episodes. Make sure you follow and subscribe. Yeah, it'd be great if you could, people that listen to subscribe to the YouTube. And then you can, if you like hearing our voices, maybe you like seeing our faces. At GTW, nice smile, at GTW_GTC. Also follow our TikTok, and I'm sure we've got loads of Charlie picks for the playoffs coming up on TikTok, and also what have I forgot? Instagram at GTW_GTC to see all of our picks, and Twitter as well, X, where we got to 1,000 followers. Thanks to the Roar of the Lions guys, they were the 1,000th follower.
Do you know, it's funny when you talk about last week, I was going to say we should make the 1,000th follower become a guest, and
we did, yeah.
Kind of just how it happened.
Still looking out for the listener in Kenya. Get in touch. Cool. We'll be back with the Super Wildcard Weekend review on Monday night games, and it's all Tuesday. I imagine Tuesday it'll be out Wednesday, and then of course we'll have a preview for the divisional round as well. That's it from us. We'll have a great Super Wildcard weekend, guys, and catch you after the weekend.
Cheers. Have a good weekend.